Hey everybody, it's Emily at ARG Schooling, and today I'm going to be bringing you my November wrap-up. So I read a total of 10 books in the month of November, and I'm going to try to do my best to talk about them. I always feel kind of awkward doing wrap-ups because especially the books that I read at the beginning of the month aren't like as clear in my mind anymore, and so I feel like I don't know what I'm talking about. So I'm gonna do my best. I'm gonna start with my favorite reads of the month for the most part, and that was my completion of the Arc of the Scythe trilogy. I read Thunderhead at the very beginning of the month, and then I binge read The Toll. I loved this so much. I mean, I'm going to talk so much more extensively if you come to the live show when we have our ARG Booked Book Club live show discussion of The Toll, where we'll also probably talk a bit about the Arc of the Scythe in general, the whole series. But, I mean, I can tell you that this was very satisfying to read. Sometimes I get nervous going into the final book in a series because your expectations are just so high. By that point, like, I've dedicated time thinking about this for a long... Oop! Come on, Zildjian. Excuse me while my dog just, like, shoves his way through. So I've spent a lot of time thinking about the series and what I wanted it to have happen. Like, there are things that I wanted to see happen, and they happened. And the ending was not something I would have predicted at all, but it was so good. It was so good. Oh my gosh. So I don't want to spoil anything. I'm not going to talk about details in my wrap-up. Just, you know, if you've hung out and read Scythe and Thunderhead, you will not be disappointed by The Toll. Like, it's excellent. And I cannot wait to talk about it more extensively in the live show, which will be December 21st, I believe, at like 6 o'clock at night. I will have more details on that later. I'm very excited. These, by the way, were both 5 stars. I read 3 books as I'm working on my level 5 update for Build Your Library, so if you're interested in knowing what I read for that, these are all middle grade. I read Blood on the River by Elisa Carbone. This was already in level 5. This isn't new to level 5, but it's a book that I really like, and I wanted to keep it there, but I needed to reread it and update some of the discussion questions and things. I really love this book. It's historical fiction, and it's about what it was like living at Jamestown. I love historical fiction when there are real historical figures as the main characters. It just really helps you to live in that time and like understand where things were coming from and how people saw things. I don't know, I really like that in historical fiction. And this book is full of real historical figures, and so it's great. It's really, really well written, and it's still going to be in level 5. And I give this a 4-star rating. I read Chains by Laurie Halse Anderson. I've had this on my shelf for years, and I just hadn't gotten to it yet. I picked it up on a whim, I think from Book Outlet, several years back, and I've been meaning to read it ever since then. So when I started thinking about like what would I want to add or change in level 5, this book is just screaming at me to pick up. So I read it. I loved it. This is really great. Again, such well-written historical fiction. I already love Laurie Halse Anderson's writing. She wrote one of my other favorite middle grade historical fiction novels, Fever 1793. Love that book, and which is also still in level 5, but I wanted to add this because it gives an interesting perspective on the war. I love books that take a topic that has been like so overdone, in this case the Revolutionary War, and they give you a different perspective on it. And so I loved that the main character in this story is a girl who is enslaved and seeking her freedom, her and her sister, and I love her perspective on the story. I love seeing the time period through her eyes, and I just think it's a great story. It also gives a really nice view of like people who are loyalists versus people who are patriots, and so I just think this book is so great. I've already purchased the next 2 in the series. It's a trilogy, and I absolutely need to know what happens next. Another book I read for the level 5 update is Tristan Strong Punches a Hole in the Sky by Kwame Mbalia. I freaking love this book. I cannot even, you guys, I went into this with such low expectations because so far I've just not been super impressed by the books that I've read, like, along these lines. I didn't love Percy Jackson. Like, I complained a lot in the reading of Percy Jackson, so I didn't like that. And some of the other books that I picked up in Rick Riordan's series had felt very much like a Percy Jackson story. And they all seem to have this thing where the author feels the need to use modern slang. And it never works for me. And so I did not expect that I was going to love this. But it was so good. Like, the story is so rich and well told. It's a different perspective than we see. Like, I've heard very little about African American folklore and mythology, and so reading this was just fascinating on that end, getting to see all those stories. Like, I know who John Henry is, I know who Brer Rabbit is, but I'd never really thought too hard about how they all come together within this folklore. And so it was great getting to see that. But it was the story itself was just so good. It was so rich and so detailed, and I loved Tristan as a character, and the fact that he's dealing with grief and learning how to become a hero when you have this desperate need to save people because you couldn't save the person that you needed to save. So you have to make yourself save others. And the fact too that storytelling itself is his superpower, and I love this book. I cannot stop talking about it. You guys, it's fabulous. I'm so excited to pick up anything else that Kwame Mbalia puts out. I want to pick up the next book in this Tristan Strong series. It doesn't exist yet, but I know that it will, and I need it. But this book was great. It's going to be in level 5 because I just need everyone to read it. I read 2 graphic novels. In November, I read Volume 29 of The Walking Dead, Lines We Cross. I said I was going to finish. I have 3 more. I read 1 in December, so I'm going to finish the series in December now. It didn't happen in November. But I did pick up this volume, and this one felt kind of like filler. Or not necessarily filler. I guess it felt like setup. There's nothing really happens in this one that was like memorable, except maybe the introduction of a new character. But overall, it felt very much like we're getting to this thing that's going to happen. And you'll get excited for it later, but this isn't it. So I ended up giving this 3 stars. It was okay. It wasn't bad. I didn't dislike it. I just wanted it to be more. I guess coming off of what had happened right before this, there was just a lot going on there. And I assumed that there's going to be a lot going on in the next couple of volumes, so it's fine. But this one was just okay. I also read Witches, Volume 1 by Scott Snyder, and I really liked this quite a bit. I picked this up because it takes place in New Hampshire, and I needed to have a book to work on the challenges that I had left in the Build Your Library Reading Challenge for 2019. Read a book that takes place in your state. So I needed to read something. I figured this would be really quick, and it was. I think I read this in like 2 sittings, and it was really good. It was very creepy, and the storyline itself was really well done. It had a lot of plot twists that I didn't see coming. The only thing that kept this from a 5 was the ending was kind of too ambiguous for me. Like, I know it's a cliffhanger, and I'm assuming there's more, but I don't see anything about more in the story coming anytime soon, so I don't know how long I'm going to have to wait to see what happens. But also, I did not love the art style. Some of the pictures are gorgeous, but some of them look like this, so it's just really hard to see what the heck is going on. Like, the art is just, it's not even that it's blurry, it's just like there's too much going on, and it's hard to understand what I'm seeing. So I wish that the art could have been a little bit better. Like, see what I mean? It's just, there's a lot of like weird blur going on, and it's hard to tell what I'm looking at. I liked it. I gave it a 4, but I really wished it could have been a 5. I also read 3 ebooks. 2 of them were ARCs, and so I don't really have a cover to show you. Usually the ARCs don't come with a cover. When you get them on NetGalley, it's just like the blank like title page kind of. So I'm going to try and see if I can link or put pictures here for you. But the first one I read was Shadow Play by Joseph O'Connor, and this was so promising. I also can't remember when it's supposed to come out. I'll put that information up here for you. It was very okay. I gave it a 2.5 stars because one, I just had such high expectations for it because it sounded amazing. It's historical fiction and it takes place in Victorian England, and it's about Bram Stoker writing Dracula and his time working at the Lyceum Theatre in London, and all of that sounds amazing. There's some like love triangle stuff happening with Ellen Terry, I believe is her name, and I forget the other guy's name, who was the owner of the theater. And it sounded so good. It was just everything I would want in a novel, and I was so excited to read it. But frankly, it was not great. It just didn't, I don't think the storyline, like the author didn't know how to take all the things that he wanted to include in the story and make it into a cohesive story. It just felt very like, here's all these things that are happening, and I'm going to tell them to you in weird, like, journalistic way. Like, it was, sometimes you were reading a journal and the dialogue was weird, and sometimes it was a letter, and sometimes it was just narration from, like, a person telling you it was all over the place, and it never quite knew how to be a story. It was trying to be like 3 different stories, I think, and it just never quite came together. So I did not like it. There were moments that I liked. There were like little parts of the story and dialogue and just certain things, like the phrase, bananas and anarchy, it's bananarchy. Like, that was maybe my favorite thing I've ever read in a book. I just wish it had been in a better book. I don't know. So it was not great. And then I read another arc, Jane Anonymous, by Lori Faria Stolars, and this one I liked a lot more. It was young adult, and it was like a young adult contemporary about a girl who gets kidnapped, and she's taken into this weird place, like she's kept in a cell for 7 months, and then she escapes, and she's telling you the story as a, like, writing exercise for therapy. She's going to tell you what happened. So it jumps in back and forth in time between when she was taken and her time in captivity, and once she's escaped and in freedom, and like how she's dealing with that past and having lost that time. I think it's like 7 months that she was gone. So it was really well done. I really liked the story. I can't say that I enjoyed it. You don't want to say, I enjoyed reading about this girl being like kidnapped and in captivity and her resulting like psychological problems from that. It's not enjoyable, but the story was really well done. It was really interesting to read. I was very concerned for her the whole time, even though you know she makes it out because she's writing to you like from the after. So there's, you know, she's gonna make it, but it still felt very like frightening. And my only qualm was that the thing that I think was meant to be a plot twist wasn't really a plot twist. And I don't know for certain that it was supposed to be, but it felt like that's what it was being set up as. And so I assumed it was that's what it was, and I figured it out really early on. Like I don't know that I wasn't supposed to, though. So maybe that's not an issue. Maybe you're supposed to be on that page, and I don't know, but I thought it was pretty good, and I gave it 3.5 stars. And the last book that I read in November is The Twisted Ones by T. Kingfisher. I had bought this when it was on sale a few weeks ago. I think I got the ebook for like $1.99 or $2.99, one of those ebook deals, and I was intrigued by the premise. And then when I was looking at the Goodreads Challenge semi-finalists or finalists or whatever it is, I saw that this was nominated in the horror category, and I was like, hey, I have that. Let me read it and see if I want to vote for it. I finished it like on the very last day of November, and it was okay. I don't know. I don't know if this style of horror quite works for me. I guess if I had to like categorize it, I'd say this is a fae story. I assumed that the Twisted Ones were fae. That's what I was feeling as I was reading it. So this is like a fae story, and I don't always like that, and so I was sort of disappointed that that's where this was going. And I did like the writing style, the narration. This was kind of a horror comedy, and I found that to be enjoyable, although sometimes I think it was like in the wrong timing for it to be funny. Like it would be very like something scary is happening and then she'd just be cracking jokes. And I'm like, okay, so now it's not scary anymore. So this never felt scary to me. I don't know if it is supposed to. I've seen reviews where people say it was really terrifying, and I don't know what they were reading, but nothing that happened in this book would qualify to me as terrifying. There were things that I think were supposed to be creepy that I didn't feel creeped out by. And overall, I thought this was just very okay. I wanted there to be more. I wanted there to be more scary things. Mostly what I liked about it was the funny moments, and I liked the fact that there's a dog. And just mild spoiler alert, the dog does not die in this book. So if that is a thing that bothers you, you don't have to worry about it. There's a dog in this book and he makes it all the way to the end. So it's fine. But overall, I just feel like this was more weird than frightening. And I just didn't like it enough to even want to vote for it in the Goodreads Choice Awards, so I didn't. But I just thought it was okay, and I gave it 3 stars. So these are the books that I read in the month of November. I had a pretty good reading month, I'd say. I mean, even just reading The Toll would have made this a good reading month no matter what. But the fact that I had so many other decent books this month, so many other really great stories to lose myself in, it was great because let me tell you, November was rough. Ugh. My daughter got sick and it just would not go away. Then my husband got it and he was sick. And it was just like never-ending illness in my house this past month. So I'm very happy to see the back of November go away and take that illness with it because I'm done. And I've been dealing with a mildly sore throat the last couple of days and I'm just like, I will not get sick. I will not. I don't have time. I'm very excited though to get into December. Something about December is just one of my favorite times of the year. I don't know what it is. I mean, obviously Christmas, but like just having an end goal, like I have to do these things because it'll be the end of the year. I don't know. I like making plans and I like giving myself challenges and I like that feeling of accomplishment when I finish out the year's reading and I see what I've read for the year. I like that a lot. So I'm very excited for December. So what did you guys read in the month of November? Please let me know down below in the comments and we can chat. Thanks so much for watching and I'll see you guys next time. Happy reading. Bye.